You may recall it's been 2 months. Last April we didn't have an afternoon service because Resurrection Day we had a breakfast instead of a lunch. But in March we started, instead of a full sermon in Life in the Kingdom we've been going through in the 4 o'clock meeting, we started just doing devotional studies on the Psalms. And so March was Psalm 1, April we missed, so Psalm 2 today. So I invite you to turn your Bibles there, Psalm number 2. And a couple of purposes of these devotional times. Number one, it's good to study the Psalms. They are very instructive and encouraging and sometimes challenging or convicting. This Psalm 2 is an encouraging one. It shows how great our God is. That's why we're studying the Psalms. The reason we're doing shorter studies is what Bill just said. We're going to sleep if we go too long. And we includes the speaker. So we'll shorten them up a little bit anyways. Psalm 2 is quoted or referred to 7 times in the New Testament in 3 different books of the New Testament. The book of Acts, it's found 2 times. The book of Hebrews, it's found twice. And the book of Revelation, at least a reference, not so much a quote as the other books, but 3 times it's referred to in Revelation. In Acts chapter 4, we studied that not a few months ago now, but the focus was on the death of Jesus Christ. Verse number 2, the kings of the earth set themselves and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed. And Acts 4 applies that to Pilate and Herod plotting and carrying out the death of Jesus Christ. In Acts chapter 13, this chapter is applied to the resurrection of Christ. So it's death in Acts 4, resurrection in chapter 13, and it's referring to, quoting verse 7, I will declare the decree, the Lord hath said unto me, Thou art my son, this day have I begotten thee. And the begetting is not his birth, but his resurrection. So his crucifixion, verse 2, the kings of the earth plotting that out. His resurrection, verse 7, the begetting, the life of Jesus Christ. Hebrews chapters 1 and 5 quote verse 7 as well, and just apply it to the sonship of Christ, the greatness and the glory of Jesus Christ. And then the book of Revelation, verse number 9, not really quoting the whole verse, but referring to the rod of iron 3 different times, shows his revelation applies it to the rule of Jesus Christ over the nations. Probably during the millennial kingdom, but beyond that, I'm sure, but showing his rule over the nations. So that's how the New Testament applies it. And that last subject, the rule of the Lord over others, is kind of the main theme that we get as we read this, most obvious prophecy. But there's a lot of other things we can learn. So in our outline, I'm just going to summarize the psalm first of all, and the different segments of the psalm. First of all, verses 1 through 6. The Lord asserts his authority over world leaders. He asserts his authority over world leaders. Verse 1, why do the heathen rage and the people imagine a vain thing? The world is angry about something they can't do anything about. They are raging, they are angry, they have an idea what they want to do to settle their anger, to fix what they view as a problem, but it's a vain thing. It's something they cannot do. Their goal is beyond their ability. It's empty as it relates to them. What is this thing they want to do? Verse 2 and 3. The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed. That word anointed is the Hebrew word Messiah. That's what that word literally is, translated anointed. So the Lord, Jehovah, God the Father, they're against him, taking counsel against him, but as well against his Messiah. At this point in time, Acts chapter 2, the life of David, it's a Psalm of David. It's not mentioned in our Bibles, at least not in mine, that it's written by Psalm 2. But in Acts chapter 4, Psalm 2 is quoted and applied there to David, so we know he is the author. At that time, the Messiah, the Anointed One, might have been David himself. Saul before him, Solomon after, the king of Israel, may have been the idea of the anointed. But going far beyond him, of course, based on the next few verses, it's applied to the true Messiah, the Lord Jesus, Son of God, that the New Testament more fully describes. But that's who they are against. Their goal is to get rid of him, them. Verse 3, let us break their bands asunder and cast away their cords from us. It is their desire, this empty thing, this thing they're mad about but they can't stop and do anything about. Verse 1, they're angry. What they want to do is get rid of God. We don't want him in our lives. We don't want any accountability to him, responsibility to him. Let's break their bands and let's just be free. Verse 4, God's response. He that sitteth in the heavens shall laugh. It'd be like if you're walking along, you see an ant on the ground, and if you could magnify that ant, and that ant is putting up his dukes, wanting to punch you out. That's kind of the picture here. We are man, verses 1 and 2, the rulers of the earth, anybody else, is like the ant challenging God, challenging a full-grown person, and you look at that ant and just laugh. You can't do anything to me. I could stomp you and you'd be into oblivion very quickly. God looks at not just the worst or smallest people on the earth, but even the kings and rulers of the world, and he laughs at them. You guys can't stop me. What you're wanting to do, what you're raging about is a vain thing. It's not going to happen. You can't get rid of me. He's laughing in verse 4, the first half of verse 4, but then he gets very serious. The end of verse 4 and into verse 5. The Lord shall have them in derision. He says, you're not going to be able to accomplish what you want to do. Then shall he speak unto them in his wrath, and vex them in his sore displeasure. From laughing at them, he becomes angry towards them, speaks unto them in his wrath and his displeasure, because they want to get rid of him. And number one, that can't happen. But number two, the idea that that's what they want. The one who created them, the one who loves them, the one who provides for them, makes the sun shine upon them and the rain fall upon them. And they want to get rid of him and out of their lives. God's angry with it. He doesn't say, well, that's fine, that's reasonable. You can think what you want, I don't care. God's not like that at all. He is wrathful towards them as they try to get rid of him or desire to get rid of him. And then verse 6, yet have I set my king upon my holy hill of Zion. The nations of the world have their kings, leaders, rulers, etc. God said, I have my own king, and I'm putting him on Mount Zion, the hill of Zion. And reference to Zion could be an earthly reference. Jerusalem's referred to as Zion, but Zion is as well a heavenly reference, in heaven. And both would be true. God has set his king in Jerusalem. David, at this point in history, is Psalm 2. Prophetically, his king set in Zion, the Lord Jesus Christ ruling from Jerusalem throughout the millennium. But at all times, over all the world, God has set his son as king, ruling from heaven. So the Lord asserts his authority over world leaders. They want to get rid of him. God says, not only are you not getting rid of me, but here's my king, and he's going to rule over you. That's verses 1 through 6. Verses 7 through 9, the next point of summary, the Lord gives authority to his son. He gives authority to his son. Just like he had, verse 6 mentioned my king. Verse 7, he gives more detail. Who is this king that he's talking about? Verse 7, I will declare the decree. And this is, by the way, the Son himself talking, as you see this quote carried out. I will declare the decree. I, the Son, will declare the decree. The Lord Jehovah has said unto me, Thou art my Son. This day have I begotten thee. So here's the Son of God, who we commonly call Jesus Christ, the Son of God, saying, here's what's happened. God, the Father, set his king upon Jerusalem, or Zion, and then Jesus, the Son of God, says, here's the basis for that. Here's the decree that established that. Jehovah told me, my Father told me, you're my Son, and you've been begotten by me. Not in the sense of a new life, like he's not existed before, that Jesus came into being at some point. But John 3:16, God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten Son, eternal Son. And like I said, verse 7 applies the begetting of this verse of verse 7 to the resurrection of Jesus Christ in Acts 13. Christ has been exalted, is in the exalted position of the Son of God. And as God's Son, he is the Messiah, verse 3 or 2, but as well the King that's ruling over all in verse 6. Verse 8, and this appears to be God the Father now talking back to God the Son. Ask of me, and I shall give thee the heathen for thine inheritance, and the uttermost parts of the earth for thy possession. Thou, the Son of God, thou shalt break them with the rod of iron, thou shalt dash them in pieces like a potter's vessel. God says, I'm going to give to you my Son. This is your inheritance. Fathers give inheritances to the sons. Here's what the Father gives. The heathen. The Gentiles, really what that refers to. Not heathen in the sense of backwards, evil, people, but the Gentiles for thine inheritance, the nations, and the uttermost parts of the earth. So you're ruling from Zion, verse 6, but your inheritance will be worldwide. Jesus Christ will rule and reign over the entire world, over all the peoples of the world. And from the heathen, from the uttermost parts of the earth, will come his church, Jew and Gentile blended together in the church of Jesus Christ. For the rebels, verse 9, you'll break them with the rod of iron. And like I said, Revelation used that rod of iron phrase 3 different times. It's the only place it's found. Psalm 2, verse 9, and then 3 places in Revelation describing, probably the millennium, but describing overall the rule of Jesus Christ over his enemies. The authority has been given to his Son. The world doesn't want him. The world wants to get rid of him. But God the Father says he's set in place as king, and he is in control of you. In fact, he will have you as his inheritance. Final verses 10 through 12. The Lord gives advice to the world. Unsolicited advice, undoubtedly. The world had taken counsel together. Let's talk about this. We need to figure out a way to get rid of God. God responds, verses 10 through 12, by giving them advice. Be wise now, therefore, O kings. Be instructed, ye judges of the earth. Even kings and judges need to learn from God, from God's word. Be wise and be instructed, he tells them. Here's the advice. Serve the Lord with fear and rejoice with trembling. Recognize that you may be a king, you may be a ruler, judge of the earth, but there's somebody over you. You better serve him and acknowledge him as Lord. But especially verse 12, kiss the Son. Have a right relationship to the Son of God. Kiss the Son, who 1,000 years later is revealed to us as Jesus Christ, the God who became man. Kiss the Son. Have a right relationship with him. Otherwise, here's what you're facing. Lest he be angry and he perish from the way when his wrath is kindled but a little. Book of Revelation describes a couple different places, uses the phrase like the fullness of God's wrath. It's filled to the full. Even a little of God's wrath is sufficient to destroy and judge the entire world. You'll perish if his wrath is kindled but a little. Imagine facing the fullness of the wrath of God. So kiss the Son instead of rejecting him or wanting to get rid of him. And the final verse, or final phrase, verse 12, blessed are all they that put their trust in him. And we'll finish with that verse in a couple moments. So that's a summary of the psalm. The Lord asserts his authority over world leaders who think they're in charge and figure out a way to get rid of God. The person in authority is the Son of God. God gave him that position. And then the Lord tells the world, oh, you better get right with my Son. Kiss him, otherwise you're facing his wrath. Okay, some final thoughts. Devotional thoughts of application on Psalm 2, the bottom part of the outline. Number one, the world will always oppose the Lord. The world will always oppose the Lord. And like I said, this is a Psalm of David, written in 1000 BC, roughly. And David said, present tense, the kings of the earth set themselves, rulers take counsel. It's going on now, he says, in 1000 BC. This chapter is quoted, especially verse numbers 1 and 2 in Acts chapter 4, roughly 30 AD, the days of the early church. So 1,000 years later, Pilate, Herod, kings of the earth, setting themselves, taking counsel against the Lord and against his anointed one. You can go back all the way to the Garden of Eden. Satan, Adam and Eve, let's get rid of God. He told us just eat whatever you want, just leave that one tree alone. Adam and Eve basically, let's take counsel against God, let's break that ban, let's get rid of that one rule, let's go ahead and eat that tree. And they were judged for it. Throughout history, whether it's a husband and wife, the book of Genesis, kings in David's day and rulers of the world in David's day, rulers of 2,000 years ago, the early church, you're probably aware that the world still wants to get rid of God. It hasn't changed in the last 2,000 years, last 6,000 years. The world will always oppose the Lord. And in fact, it's not just, verse 2 mentions the kings and the rulers, but verse 1, why do the heathen, why do the Gentiles, not just the leaders of them, but all of them, the people, from citizen or subject of the kingdom to the king himself. The entire world has the same mentality of opposing God. In fact, all the way up to the second coming, like Psalm 19 quotes this verse, or not this one, verse number 9, the rod of iron passage. Kings and armies are gathered together there as Jesus Christ comes down. Kings and the armies of the world are just gathered together. And it says to make war with him. It started in the Garden of Eden, carried on, it's re-echoed, didn't just resume again, but it continues on through David, continues in the early church, continues today, and it'll be continuing again when Jesus Christ comes again. Always opposing the Lord. Why? That's thought number 2. There will always be the same evil reason for this. The same evil reason. Adam and Eve, people in David's day, people in the days of the early church, people today, people in the future, same reason. Verse number 3. Let us break their bands asunder and cast away their cords from us. Let's get rid of the authority of God. We don't want to do what God tells us to do. Adam and Eve didn't want to. Nobody wants to. The world always wants to get rid of God, the thought of God, the accountability to God. Let's say the world evolves. There's no need of a creator we're accountable to. That's just another expression of the same thing. Let's break their bands asunder, cast away their cords from us. Deb, can you put this quote on the screen back here? Look at the bottom. Aldous Huxley, so if you've heard of him, he's dead now. He actually died same day that President Kennedy was assassinated, November 22nd, 1963. C.S. Lewis died the same exact day as well, those 3 famous men. But look at this quote. I had motives. This is him fairly towards the end of his life, one of the latter books he wrote. I had motives for not wanting the world to have a meaning. And I consequently assumed that it had none. And I was able without any difficulty to find satisfying reasons for this assumption. The philosopher who finds no meaning in the world is not concerned exclusively with a problem in pure metaphysics. They may say that in their books and their speeches and stuff like that. It's metaphysical. We're no meaning in the world because there's no God, etc., etc. The yellow wording. He is also, the philosopher, and he including Aldous Huxley and his friends, he mentions, he is also concerned to prove that there is no valid reason why he personally should not do as he wants to do. This is an amazing admission. Aldous Huxley, the reason I believe what I believe is because I want to be able to do what I want to do. And so I'm going to tell other people there's no God we're accountable for, we're just animals that are going to die and go out of existence so that we can do what we want to do. Continues, for myself, as no doubt for most of my friends, that's a sad commentary, as most of his friends are like this, the philosophy of meaninglessness was essentially an instrument of liberation from a certain system of morality. We objected to the morality because it interfered with our sexual freedom. Let's break those bands from us. Let's do what we want to do. Get rid of this certain system of morality, which he then describes in the next couple of words. The supporters of this system claimed that it embodied the meaning, the Christian meaning they insisted, of the world. There is one admirably simple method of confuting these people and justifying ourselves in our erotic revolt. We would deny that the world had any meaning whatever. So the way they justified their immorality is by saying there's no meaning to life. There's no God, there's no eternity, there's nothing like that. We can just do whatever we want. When Aldous Huxley died, he told his wife, he was in his last days and maybe last hours even, and as he's facing death, which he's realizing it's a real thing, you know what he did? He told his wife, give me LSD. So he died on an LSD high. That's how he went out of this world, doing what he wanted to do to the very last moment of his life. And then he died. And he found out then, this meaninglessness, there's no meaning in life, he was completely off on, completely wrong. He lived his life as he wanted to do, wanted to live, and then he found out in death it's not the way to live. Going back to our outline, number 2, the same evil reason. This is worded in a way, maybe not everybody would say the same thing, but we just want to live our own way. I'm okay, you're okay, let's just do what we want to do, and we're not accountable to God. Break his bands asunder and their cords from us. Number 3, the Lord's Son, S-O-N, has power over the world's kings. The Lord's Son has power over the world's kings. In the ultimate fulfillment of verse 2, the anointed one, his anointed, is Jesus Christ, the Messiah. He's the ultimate fulfillment. There's others that were anointed by God, kings of Israel, etc. Priests were anointed, that sort of thing. But the ultimate fulfillment, the one who those were types of, Jesus Christ. But that person, verse 6, yet have I set my king upon my holy hill of Zion. And his king, verse 7, the Son of God. The Lord's Son has power over the world's kings. I mentioned that this passage, Psalm 2, is applied or referred to in Revelation 19 when the Lord comes again. They're going to gather and to make war against him. Remember the words, the name that Jesus Christ comes back with? The Bible says it's on his vesture and his thigh, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. They reject him. They want to get rid of him. God says, verse 6, he's my king, my estate, not that he's king over God, but he's the one I have set in place as king. And when he comes again, I'm going to bring that title and let the whole world know. King of Kings and Lord of Lords. The Lord's Son has power over the world's kings. And that is true today. It's not just true when he comes again. It's true right now. It kind of looks chaotic. Nobody's in control of this world. It'd be a lot worse if Jesus would say, I'm not going to do anything. But he is today king, and he will return, and the whole world will see, emblazoned on his garments, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And all their attempts for this millennia of the world, all world history, to get rid of him is going to fail in one final big battle of Armageddon. Is what that describes. The Lord's Son has passed over the world's kings. Final point, number 4, we need a right relationship with the Son of God, a right relationship with the Son of God. Without that relationship, we're facing God's wrath. We're facing, verse 9, being broken with a rod of iron, dashed into pieces. But if we kiss the Son, we won't face his wrath. And instead, this very last line of verse 12, the last line of the psalm would apply to us. Blessed are all they that put their trust in him. Without faith in Jesus Christ, trust in him, we have reasons to be afraid of him coming. Maybe we'll deny it, just make up a system of meaninglessness like Aldous Huxley did, but every reason in the world to be afraid, not want anything to do with him, break his bands and all that. But the moment you trust in Jesus Christ, verse 12, you're blessed. And that's the word we saw a couple months ago, Psalm 1. Blessed is the man, that's the word happy, that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, stands in the way of sinners, sits in the seat of the scornful, but his delight is in the law of the Lord. In his law doth he meditate day and night. Blessedness for those who trust in the Lord, as opposed to a meaninglessness that we come up with, try to get through this world. A right relationship with the Son of God makes us want him instead of getting rid of him. So that's our study of Psalm 2. And important little psalm. There's a lot of application in this, and gives us insight into why this world is like it is. Kings of the earth are against him, and so is the world. But the Lord's in charge still.